Hello students, in our last video we did Wordsworth's Preface to Lyrical Ballads from Unit C. Today we will take up Coleridge's Biographia, Literaria. But before we proceed, we will do the introduction of Coleridge. Samuel Taylor Coleridge was born at the village in Devonshire, England in the year 1772. He was the youngest son of 9 brothers and 1 sister. His father, the vicar of the village, was visionary and unworldly, qualities which Coleridge himself inherited in an intensified form. As a boy, he was imaginative, precocious, and solitary. He took little interest in games but read incessantly. About the age of 6, he read the Arabian Nights and was greatly stirred by it. Once, fearing whipping at the hands of his father, he ran away from home and passed the night at the banks of the village river. He caught cold and got that rheumatism which embittered his further life. His life in the village was happy and peaceful, but it came to an end too soon with the death of his father when the poet was only 9 years old. He was now sent to Christ Hospital, London, as a charity boy. His marvelous gift of eloquence gave him much admiring band of his school fellows who would listen to him with rapt attention as the inspired youth poured out poetry or philosophy. He won here many fast friends, and Charles Lamb was among them. At Cambridge, his weakness of will and incapability sustained industry did not permit him to reap the full fruits of his brilliant intellect. His absorbing enthusiasm for the French Revolution also came in the way of his studies. His settlement at Netherstowey marks the beginning of the happiest period of his life. The financial problem was solved to a great extent. It was here that he met and became intimate with William Wordsworth and his sister Dorothy Wordsworth. How far they influenced each other directly and who gained most by the friendship are matters of discussion, but their walks together resulted in making of poems called the lyrical ballads. Cambridge was the place where Coleridge started earning his livelihood. Coleridge planned much, but he achieved little. The history of his life is largely one of the design's unfulfilled, more broken arcs and of surmises thrown out rather than worked out. His poetic fame rests entirely on the ancient mariner, Christabel, Kubla Khan, and Dejection Ode, and of these also 2 are mere fragments. Various causes, both temperamental and circumstantial, combined to keep down his poetic output. Coleridge suffered from weakness of will and was incapable of sustained industry. As he himself once said, he was a great tomorrower. He would form intelligent plans, work upon them energetically for some time, and then gave them up for no valid reasons whatsoever. He had neither the willpower nor the singleness of purpose necessary for sustained effort. The wide scope of his mental interests diversified his energies and he failed to produce any considerable masterpiece. This weakness of will was doubled by illness and trebled by his slavery to opium. His literary career can be divided into four periods. Now, the first one is the period which lasts up to his meeting with Wordsworth in 1797. His powers are not fully matured and he has not yet found himself. It may be called the first period of experimental poetry. The best works of this period are The Fall of Rosebery, To a Friend, and Ode on Departing Year, and An Ode on France. The second period opens with the summer of 1797 and ends in 1802. It is the flowering season of his poetic genius. The best creations of the poet belong to this poet, and it includes such pieces as The Ancient Mariner, Christabel, Love, Remorse, Dejection, An Ode, and A Frost at Midnight. During this period, he also wrote many articles published mostly in the Morning Post and delivered lectures of a high order of merit and translated the German Wallenstein. The third period, lasting from 1803 to 1817, is a confused and indistinct period. Ill health, slavery to opium, and domestic unhappiness combined to cast a shadow across his life, and there is a marked decline in his powers. During this period, he produced the periodical The Friend, delivered a series of lectures on Shakespeare, published The Statesman's Manual, but the most remarkable work of this period are the famous Biographia Literaria in criticism and aids to reflection in theology. The fourth phase covers the last 17 years of his life. During this period, it was seen that they were the years of partial recovery of his powers under sympathetic care of Dr. Gilman. Lay sermons, the Constitution, Confessions, Notes on English Divines, etc. are the noteworthy products of this period. Coleridge was a great poet, but he is also a great critic. He is one of the greatest of poet critics that England has ever produced. He was the genius, and when he was inspired or when the mood was upon him, he could create works of the highest order, but he was incapable of sustained and persistent labor. He could work only by fits and starts, with the result that The Ancient Mariner is the only complete thing that he has left behind. The rest of his work, both in poetry and prose, is either scrappy, chaotic, and tentative. In bulk, it is large. In manner, it is diffuse and inward. Coleridge touched almost every shore of thought. He was the mightiest poet, critic, and psychologist of his generation. He also tried to revitalize the old order of ideas in philosophy, theology, and political theory. His life was a tragedy of unfulfilled possibilities and wasted powers. Yet, the sense of what he might have done must not be allowed to overshadow the realization of what he did. Though a weaker man than Wordsworth, he was the greatest of the lake poets. Along with Wordsworth, he did much to free English poetry from the trammels of 18th century convention. He once more breathed into it genuine love of nature and spiritual insight into her process. In the realm of supernatural, Coleridge reigns supreme. By dealing with the supernatural as a psychic phenomena, he opened out a new literary vein. Now we will consider what were the formative influences on Coleridge. Coleridge was a man of wide and comprehensive reading, and a writer's views and attitudes are consciously or unconsciously molded and formed by all that he reads. However, the influences which were most potent in shaping the views and theories of Coleridge are three. First, Wordsworth. Second, Hartley and his psychology. And third, the German transcendental and idealistic philosophy. Coleridge came in contact with Wordsworth in 1796, quite early in his career, and was powerfully influenced by the elder poet. The plan of the lyrical ballad was evolved as a result of their frequent discussions and exchange of views. He himself speaks of the influence of Wordsworth on him in the most glowing terms. The second is the influence of Hartley. This Coleridge came under the spell of associationist psychology, and he gave a mechanist view of the formation of human character and personality. According to him, the mind receives impressions of external world and through the senses, and these sense perceptions, impressions and sensations are compounded by the mind into ideas, and simple ideas are compounded into ideas of greater and greater complexity. After his German tour undertaken with Wordsworth in 1779 to 1800, Coleridge came under the influence of German philosophers who took a more active view of the imagination. For them, the human mind or imagination is not a mere passive agent but an active and creative power. Thus, Coleridge's theory of imagination is derived largely from the German idealist philosophers. So, we see that he has borrowed from others, but what he borrowed, he made it entirely his own. His originality is seen in the selection, the arrangement, and the ordering, the modifications to which he subjected the borrowed material, and in this way transformed it and made it entirely his own.